Hi, Eric Gibaud, ericgibaud.com, and today I'm going to show you two jewels, well, one jewel and one accessory for this jewel by Olympus, the Zuiko, well, because Olympus lens are actually named Zuiko, 40-150mm 2.8 Pro, and the Teleconverter 1.4, the MC14. Let's start. A few days ago I published a review of the Boya DM1 Mark III. I'll leave you the link here, and I said I would present you this lens and the teleconverter, and also about the 40-150 2.8 Pro, and also the 45 1.2 Pro. It will come in a video in a few days also. Okay, so I'm going to tell you the specification, but mainly show you pictures, because I think in this case it's better to show pictures, and you'll have an idea what you can do with this lens. Okay, so let's carry on. First of all, thank you very much to Olympus Spain and Tito Garcia to send me for sending me the lens. Some people think that when they send me gear, I keep it always. Not always. In this case, I have to give it back. Mine, I've got a 40-150. This is this one. The one for poor people. I say it with fun, okay, because it doesn't mean you have it, you're poor or you're rich or whatever. Okay, this is a plastic mount. The aperture is not the same, is from f4 up to 5.6. I mean the maximum aperture, so this is not the same thing, and this is really cheap, a lot cheaper, but it doesn't give you the same thing. So I'm going to speak to you about this one. So let's give some technical details. I'll show you pictures and some explanation. As I speak, you'll see some picture coming out, coming on screen. Okay, so it's 40-150mm. This is the equivalent in full frame of 80-300mm. And I think this is a great decision from Olympus. Why? Because if you look at this competition in full frame, people would use a 70-200 2.8, and this extra 100mm is really useful at 2.8, and this is actually why some people who use a 70-200 prefer to use an APS-C camera than a full frame, because with the multiplication factor, it gives them like a 300mm or a bit more if you're in Canon, a bit less if 300mm if you're in Nikon. Okay, so, and Sony, I can't remember the multiplication, if it's 1.5 or 1.6, I'm not sure. Okay, so it means that this extra is a lot cheaper than buying a 300mm lens for full frame camera, and otherwise you could put teleconverter on your 200mm, but then you would lose luminosity, you would lose one stop aperture. So it happens with every teleconverter. So I think it's a really good move to have put the equivalent of 300mm on this lens. It's a good idea. The minimum distance to focus is 70 centimeters. It means we can actually do proxy photography with it. You'll see some example I've made. If you want technical detail specification, it has 16 elements in 10 groups. But if you want to have all the information that you have the anti-reflection and the aspherical lenses, all this, you can go to Olympus website and you have all the technical side of it. It opens from 2.8 up to f22. It's water resistant, I mean splash proof, call it dust proof, and also freeze proof down to -10 degrees Celsius. So this is really a big difference with this one that is not protected at all. So if I want to make a picture in situations that are really dusty or with humidity, all this, that may be a problem. So you see, this is a big difference. The size is 160mm long, 72mm diameter for filter size, and the weight is 760 grams without this tripod mount. When normally you use a tripod with a lens like this, you don't put the tripod on the camera, you put it on the lens. Okay, with this mount is 880 grams. By the way, if you want to see how it looks, I'll leave you a link of a tripod I presented a few days ago, a carbon tripod I tested, so you see it mounted directly here. Okay, we can obviously remove this ring if you don't want it. If you look at the lens itself, first here you have a ring. If you pull it back, you can see here a scale, a depth of field scale, and now you are in manual focusing mode. So here autofocus and here manual. So it is really fast to change from one to the other. Second, here you have a function button. You can program as you want. You can set as you want. You can use it, for example, to activate focus peaking, or to have continuous autofocus, and then you press it and then you stop following. All this, you do it as you want. As you can see, when I change the zoom, the size keep the same, and this is the difference with mine, that when I change the zoom, then it gets longer. Okay, actually when I put it out, it's about the same size. This element moves inside. I would say that the big problem of this is that if you were using a gimbal, you would lose the way it's balanced. In this case, you may lose because you have an element inside that move, but it's not as problematic. Okay, normally you don't use a gimbal with such a long lens anyway, but well, just one reason. And some people prefer to have this way than this, and also this allow dust to get in there and to get into the lens. Okay, so this is a lot better. Sharpness. Well, as Cartier-Bresson says, sharpness is a concept of bourgeois. Okay, rich people in this. Okay, and actually, it's true that it's not the most important thing for me, the sharpness. But we cannot forget that some kind of picture do need sharpness. People who do proxy photography of small insect, you need to see the details, so it's important to have a good sharpness. Well, with this lens, I'm really happy to tell that from 2.8 maximum aperture, the sharpness is already there, and at f4 you have almost maximum sharpness. So I think it is really good. You won't be disappointed. If we speak about bokeh, well, many people confuse bokeh with depth of field. Okay, so it's not the same thing. Shallow depth of field. I'll leave you a link here to explain the difference. Okay, the bokeh is the aspect of this out of focus part, and this is the autofocus part. So how does it look with this lens? Well, it's really creamy, really nice, and if you have a point of light, it's really round. At maximum aperture, obviously it's really round. It's really nice. Okay, let's speak about the focusing. It has two autofocus motor in there, and they are really fast. I didn't have any problem to get this going really fast. So let's speak about the negative points. The first one is here with my lens. I've got a sunshade. Okay, here it exists. It comes included when they sell it to you, but Olympus didn't send it to me. I know why. Why? First, because maybe they forgot, and second, because I've used a lens like this a few years ago, and the sunshade is really fragile. So I don't know if they fixed it, but it's like really easy to use. You push it and it's really nice, but sometimes it blocks, and if you force it, it breaks, in the way that a lot of small metal ball, like metal ball you use like on wheels, okay, they fall on the floor and it's broken. Okay, so I think they're really fragile. I don't know if they fixed it. I know that some people who broke it, Olympus had no problem to change it, to give them another one. But if you use it, make sure to be really gentle with it. Don't force it, otherwise you will break it and it's a disaster. Okay, you have a lot of small ball and you cannot, I don't think you can repair it yourself, or maybe even lose some small balls on this. Okay, so I said this is the bad point of this lens is this. Second point, which is not a bad point, because I think every lens has this kind of problem, but I have to say it, because if I don't say it, then haters will say, yeah, when it's Olympus, you don't tell anything about default or defect or anything. Well, at 2.8, I tested at 40, 100mm and 150mm. You have a slight vignetting. I'll show you example. Nothing you cannot fix. I mean, in Lightroom, you go to remove vignetting, just a slight bit, and then it's out. Only at 2.8. At 4, I didn't have the problem. Okay, so I must say I have to tell it, but like most lenses at 2.8 you get a slight vignetting. So it means that if you were not thinking of doing post-production, you will have this. In post-production, you remove it and that's it. It takes a quarter of a second. Okay, no problem. One thing I was really happy about, I did not see any flare. I made pictures of surfers with the sun really in the wrong place, and that would probably give me flare. I didn't get it. I did pictures of this windmill you're seeing right now, and the sun was really just on top of the lens like this, okay, in front of it. The air was really dusty, but even with this, normally you get flare. I did not get any flare. I didn't have any sunshade either, so I'm really happy. I know some people like flare, but it's better to add it in post-production than to have to remove it if you didn't want it. So really nice to know that. I think this lens is really versatile. You can really do a lot because as you can focus from 70 centimeters, it's really easy to do insect, small animals or plants very close, and you can do animal photography a lot further, or sport photography. So this is really versatile. You can really do a lot with this lens. This is really great. So even though sometimes when you want to go really far, maybe you will be a bit short. By the way, first, some people ask me sometimes, how do you know how many millimeters you need to do such or such picture? Let's say I want to make a picture of a person at 50 meters away, and what millimeter do I need, focal length do I need to fill the frame? It's really hard to say because if you're a mathematician, it's easy to calculate, but if you're not, it's hard to imagine. So to show you an idea of what it covers, here's a picture of a lighthouse at 40 millimeter and then at 150 millimeter to give you an idea what it covers. Okay, just an idea. Okay, so let's go back to what I was going to say about sport and animal photography. Sometime you will get short, so I told Tito I would make some pictures of animal if I could, and unfortunately it was not possible. I was thinking of bird, the typical bird on the seagull, animal birds like this, and on the seaside, but it was so windy they were not even there, and the only animal I could catch was a kind of small, I don't know how you call that, a small eagle, something like this. And it was really far, so I show you a picture, then I crop a bit to show you, but really it was too far. So sometimes you will see that 300 millimeter equivalent is too short. This is why very often in animal photography people use 600 millimeter, but that's another budget. Okay, if you want to have good quality lens, it's really a high budget. Olympus has a 300 millimeter lens anyway. Maybe one day I'll test it. Okay, and now they have the 400 they have the 100 to 400 millimeter 4.5, which is also another budget. Okay, so there is an ideal accessory, which is the teleconverter 1.4. It exists in 2.0. And Olympus asked me, do you want the 1.4 or the 2.0? I said, no, I want the 1.4. Because the 2.0 I've seen some tests and it loses sharpness quite a bit. Okay, so I want you to try this. So when you use a teleconverter 1.4, you lose one stop of light, not just with Olympus, but with most brands it's like this. 1.4 multiplication, then instead of having a maximum aperture of 2.8, I've got f4. That's not a problem. What I was surprised is that the sharpness was the same. At f4 maximum aperture at the same sharpness and at 2.8 without the teleconverter. So with this, my lens is then the equivalent of 420 millimeters. So then you can really catch things at a bit further. I've made many pictures of surfers and windsurfers. Some I've cropped so you can see closer. I'll show you both in this case. But really, I think that unless you are sure that you're not going to need this, because you do like portrait photography, fashion photography, you're not doing anything a bit far, I think this is a really useful accessory. I would buy it together. It's cheaper if you get it in kit along with the lens than alone after. Okay, So if you're going to buy this lens and you probably want to do animal photography or sport photography, get this too. Even if you want to do like landscape photography a bit further, then I think it's really useful. By the way, speaking about landscape photography, normally this is not the kind of lens you would use for a landscape photography, although there is no rules, you can use any focal length you want. But I saw a video of Peter McKinnon a few months ago. He was interviewing a girl, that photographer, that was doing landscape, and she loved to use a Canon 100 to 400mm to reach landscape you could not get close to, okay? And it gives really a different look. So I tried with this, and it's great to get like a pot of rocks or the waves or something that is really far away. You cannot walk towards there, it's too far, a valley in the mountain, and you can catch it. And this lens was really great for that, okay? So if you have this, you can reach even further. So honestly, I would recommend to get this one too, okay? So altogether, what do I think about this lens? Well, I think I've got the 7 to 14mm 2.8 Pro. I've got the 12 to 40mm 2.8 Pro, and this is really the great complement of the Holy Trinity, as I say. I've got this one, which is great because I almost never use it. This is not a focal length I actually use, but if I want to do more picture close to the sea or in dusty environment, this may be a serious problem because it's not dust proof, not splash proof. That could be a problem. This one is really well protected, although it's a lot bigger, it's heavier, it's a lot more expensive. I think this is actually the ideal lens for many people who want to do a lot of kind of photography. This is not the typical zoom tele lens. This is really a lens you can use for so many things. I think people, even when they do wedding, they can do a close-up with this. People who do proxy, or very often you cannot get close to an animal, an insect with a macro photography, you could catch it with it. I think this is really a wonderful lens, honestly, and I would probably buy this lens a lot sooner than changing my camera bodies, because I think this is great. I mean, I made the review of the OMD 1 Mark III. I love it, but I'm not sure I would change bodies as long as mine work. I use the 5 Mark II, but I would probably surely replace my lens with this one a lot sooner than changing camera bodies. So I can really recommend this lens for most people who want to have quality, protection, to have all this and the reach and the versatility it has. So I think this is really a great lens. So thank you, Olympus, for sending me the lens. Next week I will publish the review of the 45mm 1.2. Thank you very much, Tito Garcia, for sending me the lens. Thank you to you for watching the video. If you feel it may interest other people, please share it on social networks. If you have not done yet, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. There's a small button down here, also a small bell. If you click on the bell, get notified when I upload a new video. My website, ericgibaud.com. If you have any question, can leave a comment below. I'll also leave you links of my gear on Amazon in description. I'll also leave you links to other parts of my YouTube channel, and also a link to my PayPal account in case you wanted to make a donation. Thank you very much. Please take care of yourself and see you soon. Bye.